Hello. So today I'm going to go over how you can use a LinkedIn newsletter to make sales, including how to structure your posts, how to come up with endless content ideas, how I come up with different stories for my posts so that they're entertaining and they're fun to write and to read, and also go over some call to action stuff so that you can have different ways for calling your people to action in your content, make sales, have them download your stuff, join an event, or whatever. So that's going to be the stuff we're going to talk about today. First, I want to talk about, though, what are some of the benefits of the LinkedIn newsletter, why I love it so much, because I've been doing content for a long time. But when I started doing this LinkedIn newsletter, I really have fallen in love with it, at least for now. It's just something that's a lot of fun. I really like the format. I think it's better for sales, and I think it's something that you could enjoy too. So this could be a good idea to try. Now, but here are some great reasons why. So one in-app and email notification. So when you write that first LinkedIn newsletter and publish it, every single one of your followers is going to get a notification that you started the newsletter. So right off the bat, you're getting a bunch of subscribers. But also every time you post a newsletter, whoever is subscribed gets a notification and they get an email. So how awesome is that? That every time you do a post, they get to know about it rather than just randomly, hopefully finding it in the feed where maybe they're just scrolling by and they're not looking at it anyway. So here we know that they're getting a notification. And not only that, but in the analytics, we know who's actually viewed our post, our newsletter for the day. It's not just impressions. It'll actually tell you views. And why this is important is because for somebody to read that letter, they actually have to click the post to open it up to view it. So you know how many people are actually reading what you're writing, which I think is really cool. It's one of the biggest reasons why I like this, because I know who was reading my stuff, and then I can track, okay, how many signups did I get for this? How many sales did I make from this based on how many views I have, okay? The 3x character limit is really cool. On a normal LinkedIn post, you get 3,000 characters. In a newsletter, you get 10,000. So I was feeling pretty limited by the 3,000 character limit. I didn't have enough room to tell the story and put in the value before I could put in a kind of call to action. So a lot of times I was just feeling like I wasn't giving a lot of value. I was staying too surface level, and my calls to action were weaker because there just wasn't enough argument buildup. There wasn't enough there to justify that call to action. Now with a longer format, more characters, I feel like it's more justified. It's working better. Now you get creative freedom too. You can do, GIFs, multiple photos. You can plug videos in there. You can do bold. You can do italics. There's different there's different sizes with the headings. Not to mention the newsletter or the cover. You can have different photos and copy, and you can have all this different things. So it gives you more creative freedom that I think is a lot more fun. It's like an official publication. Okay, and second round here, now you can use links. So you can actually put links in the newsletter that go to external places, and you're not going to get penalized by the algorithm. As far as I know, from the research that I've done, you can put in links and, again, because you've got subscribers, and people, when you do post something, they get notified regardless of whether you put a link in there or not. So it's like, as opposed to a normal LinkedIn post, if you put, say, something to a YouTube video, the LinkedIn algorithm is going to suppress that post. It's not going to show it to a lot of people because they want to keep people in the app. LinkedIn newsletter, it's not the case, which is awesome. We can send them to sales letters. We can send the people to training. Huge advantage for us. Now, more engaged readers, that's actually something I already said, because for someone to actually for you to get a view, to see that someone looked at the article, they have to click on it. So if you have great headlines, if you have great hooks, you're going to get people engaged reading your stuff, and that always leads to more trust and more sales. And again, all this culminating into sales friendly. Okay, it's just a more sales friendly format. You can tell stories. You can build up the argument more. You can have more room to give value, and you can have more natural calls to action that just gets more people taking action here. And sales isn't just money buying a product. Sales, as we'll show in some of these examples, can be getting feedback, sending people to training, just helping people more. That's what sales is. It's helping them do things and take action. Right? Right. So those are some of the good uses. Now let's go into the format that you're going to want to use for your posts. And then we're going to go over a post example. Maybe the format, then the example, and then maybe all of the different ways, like a good way to structure, a good way to have endless content ideas. So let's just start with the format here. Very basic: hook, story, pivot, value, and your pitch. So, hook, that's the thing that goes on the front, that goes with the on your that cover photo, the first thing somebody sees in the feed. What is that text going to be on the image that's going to hook them in? Okay, story, this is all about storytelling. Most LinkedIn newsletters is just straight up value, just something somebody plugs in a prompt for ChatGPT and they copy and paste a list over one thing, number one, number two, number three. We don't want to do that in newsletters. We want to have stories because people love stories. It's entertaining. People actually want to read your stuff. They get to know you better. Okay, this is so key, so critical. Now it's difficult. You're going to have to develop the storyteller's mind, where you're finding stories, not only in your life, but from clients or from whatever you do in normal life, from the media, from books, wherever. It takes a little more effort, but it's going to make your stuff 10 times better. You're going to stand out way more. Okay, we're going to go into, there's the pivot part, which is just like how we go from the story into the value, which is the value. It's teaching them something. This is something from your program, from whatever you do, a strategy, big and small mindset shifts, techniques, things like that is the value. And then that goes into the pitch, which is basically just, what do you want them to do? Do you want them to download something? Do you want them to go to a document? Do you want them to DM you? That's it. So very basic kind of structure here. Now we're going to go into an example, but actually I think first I want to show you a good model, a good exercise that you can do to have endless content ideas that are actually making sure they're hitting the right points, stuff that your people are going to be really interested in learning about, and it's going to hook them at the same time, meaning you get more views and more sales. So let's share that part. Share screen right here. Okay, so this is something you can kind of write out yourself or take a screenshot of this right now. But this is a perfect way to come up with endless content ideas. You can see we've got 10, 20, 30, 45. Each of these, one of these points is a different idea that you can be using here for content. Let's get rid of that. Good thing I went pipe over. So let's check this out. So say you've got your program, and you should have something like like 3 pillars or so of your program. Say typically the first one is mindset, very popular, especially if you're some kind of leadership coach. Even if you're a marketing coach, really whoever you are, especially if you're a coach, you could say, what that is that first barrier. Maybe it has something to do with mindset. And what are the 10 different mistakes that they're making with their mindset? What is it that they have limiting beliefs around? Is it that they don't have the kind of energy that they need? They don't have some kind of morning routine. They're not thinking about leadership the right way. Something to do with their communication mindset, the way that they talk to their team. What are the 10 mistakes that they make? Now, then what are the objections and false beliefs for that barrier that they have? Again, if we're here talking about mindset, objections could be like, I'm too old to change my ways as a leader, or I'm too young to lead people who are older than me, or I come from a conservative background, so how am I going to lead people that are in a more democratic liberal background? So you want to address those things that they're thinking about. And then the second barrier, that could be something when you get actually to the strategies and the techniques. Say actual communication is the barrier that we're talking about here. The way that they're talking, the way that maybe has to do with the mission they don't have established values. It could be something with productivity. They don't have a routine set up. They don't have a plan that can be dynamic. Like, you get the idea. What are 1, 2, 3? What are these big barriers that they go through on their journey to working with you? The first thing they got to solve, the second, and the third. And what are all the mistakes? What are the objections and limiting beliefs? You can go deeper into all this stuff, but just for now, look at this structure, and you can do this exercise, fill this out, and get endless content ideas that are going to resonate with your people and are going to make them want to read whatever you're writing and make them feel like you understand how you can help them. Okay, so now going back with this structure here in mind. Okay, hook, story, pivot, value, pitch. Let's look at an example and how all of these things come together And then we're going to go into the different ways you can find stories and then the calls to action. So let's go to just looking at the post here. I think this is the one I want. Okay. Now, keeping our format in mind. So here we're starting with the hook. Okay, our hook here. 3 reasons to use a LinkedIn newsletter as inspired by $1 million a day drug dealer. So again, my people, you being right here, you're looking for ways, this newsletter is for this training right here. So they want to know what are different ways that I can make money from my content. So LinkedIn newsletter is one of those ways. Now, a hook, is something that draws somebody in, that captures their attention. So, interesting. Inspired by $1 million a day drug dealer. It's an interesting story. It's a story hook. Talking about a LinkedIn newsletter, something that's top of mind for my people. Different ways that you can understand what different formats for content. And then this idea of $1 million a day drug dealer. It's very interesting. So now there's that hook, and we're going to start with the story. At the height of his drug empire, Rick Ross, making $1 million a day, eventually got arrested and entered prison, an angry man, stripped of the freedom and power he once had. Months and years passed. Anger turned to monotony to reflection. One afternoon, Rick was approached by Professor A. Professor A asks Rick, "You ever think about why you ended up here?" Handed him a book, Autobiography of Malcolm X. The book hit Rick hard. He began to see that Malcolm was a product, like him, product of violence for survival. Developed an insatiable hunger for knowledge, wanted to understand more, started studying law, ways could reduce his sentence, gain freedom. All the while, he developed a new mission to speak out against drug abuse for criminal justice reform. Found discrepancies, life sentence, traveled the country, So there's the story. This is a straight up story. Now, I found this when I was listening to a podcast. Joe Rogan Experience podcast. He was interviewing this guy, Rick Ross. And as I'm listening, I just thought, I didn't even write this story down or anything, but I was thinking about what am I going to do for a post? What kind of story am I going to use? I just thought about this story. And now the next part here, we go into the pivot, right? What's part two? Next part, hook, story, pivot. Now, the pivot is something very basic, very simple. It's just right here. Why do I tell you this story? Going into the valley, right? Story. Now, why do I tell you this story? And that's it. That's how simple a pivot can be. Why do I tell you this? Or what's the point of this? What can we learn from this? Like, pivots can be very, very simple, but that's the point of it. And now we go into the value part. Reason number 1. So I can tell you that I found this while listening to a podcast, and that on Friday, my How to Write Your Own LinkedIn Newsletter Without Headache training, we give you a whole bunch of strategies. So just kind of having fun here, and I'm plugging my training that's going on right now. Reason 1, so that I can tell you that about the training coming up. Reason 2 is deeper, about unlocking your new mission to affect people with your content. Now I'm talking about why I'm doing a LinkedIn newsletter. All these things I just told you, these actual specific reasons. I'm shifting the mind. The value here is a mindset shift. Now, as a creator, if you can find ways to make your people think differently, then that is going to be something really valuable to them. That's why we're not just sharing information. We're not just sharing boring information that we see from everybody else's posts. We're sharing things that are helping our people to think differently, and that gets them excited. That gets them liking what you're sharing. It's totally unique and different to you because you're giving your opinion on this stuff. So that's what I'm doing here with the value. Okay, reason number 3. I can see who's reading. Okay, value. Just giving this value about what I think, why I love LinkedIn newsletters, what it can do for you. And then, okay, we've got that. Now, in the next part, the value, we gave the value. Now we're going into the pitch. What is our pitch? What's it going to look like? Very basic. So maybe the LinkedIn newsletter is right for you. Maybe it's a format to unlock your creativity, keep you writing, getting your unique story resonating. I'll tell you more about how I use mine and how I come up with endless ideas, how to format, how to get people buying in Friday's training. Click the link and hit the attend button here. And that goes to the LinkedIn event page that's about this training we're watching right now. Now, thing to note on this call to action is what we're doing, we want to make sure we have a benefit recap. Whenever we talk, call anybody to call to action about anything. So I just say, so maybe a LinkedIn newsletter is right for you. Maybe it is, click the attend button here. I always restate the value at the end of it. It's a really important point. Whenever you're going to call somebody to action, talk about the benefit. When I say benefit for them, how to come up with endless content ideas, how to format the newsletter posts, how to get people buying from you. Okay, benefit. You always restate that before you call to action. Again, this goes to the event cover for this event, for this training right here. Okay, so that is all of the pieces as they've come together. Okay, so far we've talked about why LinkedIn newsletter is awesome. Talked about giving you a structure for an exercise for all the different ways, for one of the ways you can come up with endless types of content ideas. I've just given you the format, an example of the actual format of how you should be writing these posts. And now I want to go into kind of the ideas, the ideas for stories, because honestly, guys, I mean, getting enough content, there's a million different ways. Everyone has all these different strategies for all the different ideas you can come up with content. The 3 barriers thing I just gave you is a good one. But really, I think the key to all of this is storytelling. Because it doesn't matter how much you know, really. It's just how can we capture attention and get people enjoying reading our stuff day after day. And we just put in a little plug for our thing. It's telling an amazing story, giving a bit of value, and plugging our thing to make sales. But the storytelling part is the most important part. Stories, how we find them. It's important point right here is getting someone to get to know you in your post a little bit more every day. How can someone get to know you just a little bit more every day? Again, you can't have people getting to know you when you're copy pasting from ChatGPT, when you're writing general textbook style articles that we see from most people's newsletters. It's lazy. It's not fun. It's not showing any kind of personality, who you are. So we got to storytell either from our personal stories or the way that we think about other people, the way that we think about other ideas, things happening in the media, things about happening in books that we see, yada, yada. Okay, so I want to share some of those things, some of the stories that I've found and how I'm introducing and how I'm hooking people in your content, because this is the most important part about this. And I want to give you some ideas for it for yourself. So, this could be a good one right here. So this is a good post, a fun, a weird post. But really, I just started off with something that happened this past weekend. Hey, it's Monday. Saw some whales swimming around off Ipanema Beach on Saturday, flipping and flopping, their tails blowing out of the water, their blowholes like a bunch of animals, upside down, right side up, mingling together. Got me thinking about you, what position you like to be in, bottom, top, positioning in your market. You're not going to compete on price like those other industry clones with atrophied creative thinking flippers. You got to stand out. Here's the thing about standing out. It's actually easy to do. So, okay, actually, and then we get into a little bit of this. So we're talking about, positioning and marketing, and I talk about something about me. What are some examples of me and why I'm different? Being industry rebel, liking long form content. So I guess, point here for this one, a story doesn't have to be this happened. Hey, I was out last weekend. First this happened, then this happened, then this happened. Here's the lesson. I'm just kind of having fun here and having a personal kind of introduction. Just like I love writing. I love being creative in my writing. So I'm just having fun here talking about these whales swimming around and flipping and flapping. Like I'm just being a dork here and just writing because just for the joy of it. And I added some stuff about me. So this is about standing out, this post. Here are examples of how I stand out. Now, if you're like a leadership style coach, this is exactly what you can do. Talk about standing out and talk about how you stand out. That's how you use story to connect with your people and your content. Okay, here's a different one. Okay, so here's a perfect one. Now, this story, this comes from the movie Citizen Kane. And again, I'm thinking about business. I'm thinking about a LinkedIn newsletter, and I'm thinking about how can I find a story that has to do with the LinkedIn newsletter and kind of in controlling your narrative. And then I thought, ooh, Citizen Kane, this will be perfect. Here's the story from that. Galleons off the Spain of Jersey coast. Thatcher throws the paper on the table with resent. Is that really your idea of how to run a newspaper? Kane swivels his chair to face his accuser, gold-rimmed coffee cup still pressed to his lips and his eyes looking rather neutral. I don't know how to run a paper, Mr. Thatcher, Kane replies. I just try everything I can think of. Charles, you know perfectly well there isn't the slightest proof of this armada off the Jersey coast, says Thatcher. Can you prove it? Snaps back Kane. So you may know that dialogue from the movie. Grabbing power that determines how people buy from paper the beast, so it better be good. So this post is about headlines. This whole post that is here is about headlines. And again, but my call to action is going to be for the workshop. Okay, and I give some value about this, about the LinkedIn newsletter training that we're talking about right now. And let's see. So, I'm actually not going to give you a bunch of headline examples in this training right here. But if you want some, you can let me know and I can share a resource that can give you a bunch of headline examples. Okay, besides the ones we have here, it's just a document, so I'll send that to you. And look at this for the benefit too. When I call to action, I'm talking about all this stuff, calling to action, but I'm going to give like an extra benefit before I actually do that. So if you want to get something like 100 examples of great headlines, you can swipe, as vetted by me, a crash course on the psychological attraction factors I use to make my own headlines and how to use them in your own newsletter, and what to talk about in your post, to structure them, how to do the important calls to action, benefit, benefit, benefit. Click that blue button on the left. Okay, so again, restating what somebody wants before they before you give them the call to action. Again, just a perfect example for a story. We're here talking about LinkedIn newsletters. Well, what a better way than to use an example of an actual newspaper from the movie Citizen Kane. Okay, let's do one more. This is going to highlight more of the call to action side, how you can do different things. So on the story side, here, this was a list, but it was 15 books that have changed my life. So again, it's something, the personal side is the story side. It's people getting to know you more and more and giving value. This is in the spirit of all of those things. So I gave these different books that have changed my life. And the call to action I did was different. It always doesn't have to be for a program that you have, for some workshop that you have. Your calls to action can be anything. And for here, I shouted out a couple of my clients that have written books. What kind of sorry excuse for a coach and marketer would it be if I left out some of my clients' books from the list? Clients' books. Client. I put a link to his book from Amazon, another client, and put a link to his book on Amazon. So your calls to action the big point here, it doesn't always have to be to buy something. Like we just it's in the spirit of wanting the people we're serving to take action, make them want to do something, to move, to make their lives better. In this case, it's checking out some of my clients' books because they're great. Go look at those. And another day it could be to join this live training that's here. Or another could just be, hey, let me know. I have this resource that I put together, like even just for this training. I've got this resource of a headlines training you can have. If you want it, let me know. Send me a DM and I'll send that to you. Just like it's the idea of the next step, helping your people take a next step to do something that's going to benefit their life. That's what we're doing here with calls to action. Okay, guys, so we're going to leave it at that. I hope you enjoyed this. And yeah, my call to action here for this is really just, if you want, again, that resource on a bunch of different, the philosophy, the mindset behind creating really pulling headlines, and a bunch of different examples, you can let me know and I'll send that resource over to you. But other than that, I'm just going to leave it here, and have a good one. Let me know if you need any help. And that's it.